One of the most popular forms of content in the sporting world amongst fans of the game are rankings, as the core of most discussion in sports tends to come down to people arguing about who is better than who as a player. So because of this, content creators and national media outlets tend to make their own lists ranking players in their respective sports, based on a number of different categories. And while you'll never successfully make a list that everybody agrees with because of how differently every individual thinks, there can be some lists that are objectively better than others, as long as some sort of logic applies to them. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be looking at what could quite possibly be the worst player ranking list I think I've seen in quite a while, being Bleacher Report's ranking of the 24 current best players under the age of 24. There's so much to unpack about this list, and it has already gotten a ton of blowback on social media, but in this video we'll be going through it and picking out the 3 players that they overrated the most, and the 3 players that they underrated the most. I won't be going over every aspect of the list today, so if you want to read the whole thing for yourself, it will be linked down in the description of this video. Before we start though, it turns out about 49% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting with the players that they most heavily overrated, the first one up is Tyrese Maxey of the Philadelphia 76ers, who they ranked as the 5th best player under 24 years old. Now, most of you should know I'm personally a pretty big fan of Maxey and his potential, and he certainly is having a pretty impressive breakout season in his second year this year. However, objectively, this is a huge overreaction, and we do need to pump the brakes a little bit. There are a lot of established all-star and superstar caliber players under the age of 24 already, and Maxey is on his way to joining them, but definitely needs to produce for a longer period of time at this level before you can crown him at this spot. He's averaging about 18 points and 5 assists per game on slightly above league average shooting splits, and while his finishing at the rim ranks amongst the best players in the league, we need to see more from him to justify a top 5 ranking, especially in games when the entire team around him is healthy. Bleacher Report ranked him ahead of players like Jayson, Tatum, and Trae Young, who, spoiler alert, pop up later in this video, and in that regard, it sticks out as an overrated ranking. The next player that got pretty heavily overrated on this list is Herro of the Miami Heat, who was ranked one spot behind Maxey at number 6 overall. Again, I want to explicitly say that when I identify these players as being overrated according to this ranking, I mean it in the context of where they were ranked and which players they were ranked ahead of, which, as I stated in the Maxey overview, includes some genuine superstars and even quite a few players probably better all around. Herro is also having a breakout season of his own though, more than likely leading the 6th Man of the Year race by averaging about 22 points per game on impressive shooting splits. He's playing more confident than ever and has been a welcome source of shot creation for the Miami Heat this year. So with that said, I do believe a spot in the top 10 would have been justified. I just think that number 6 is a bit too high based on the talent pool included here. And now, the third player ranked way higher than is probably justified from the Bleacher Report list was Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets, who cracked the top 10. In the write-up from the article before the list started, they said they did try to balance the player's current season production while also taking their prior experience into consideration, along with predictions for how the players are expected to develop down the line. But based on how the actual list went, it really feels as though they weighted the current season way too heavily, because there isn't enough sample size to justify Bridges' ranking in the top 10. Prior to the year starting, Bridges was a role player trying to find his way, and this year he did get off to a scorching hot start, but has definitely cooled down a bit in recent games. He's averaging about 20 points and 7 rebounds per game this year, a level of production that has been going down in recent weeks, and I'm not so confident in him being able to maintain throughout the course of an 82-game season. And when you take into account that this is a list that's also meant to be predicting the future of players, I feel as though there are plenty of guys with more room to develop that are already better all-around players. Now we'll be switching over to the players that got vastly underrated on this list, which is where some real disrespect occurred, and the first one we'll pick out is the fact that they ranked Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder at number 23. SGA is coming off of a season where he averaged 24 points and 6 assists per game while shooting at 51% from the field and 42% from 3, which is pretty fantastic production. Yes, his numbers have dipped a little bit to start this season, as his shooting splits are now a bit below league average, and he's only scoring about 20 points per game, but to rank him below players like Talon Horton-Tucker of the Lakers and Kevin Huerter of the Atlanta Hawks is absolutely absurd, and they did that here. SGA was a borderline all-star last year, and could have had an argument to be included in the top 25 players in the entire league. So for Bleacher Report to now say that he's barely a top 24 young player is maybe the most ridiculous thing I've seen on a list like this published by a reputable outlet. The next player that got severely underrated on this list was Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics, who was ranked 8th overall. Tatum is now in his 5th season in the NBA, and going into the year, I don't think many people would have argued against the fact that he was a top 15 player in the NBA. He has established himself as one of the best scorers in the league who can make tough shots look easy, and his ability to create separation and shoot over contests can make him incredibly tough to stop. This year, he has admittedly had a bit of a rough start to the season shooting the ball pretty poorly overall, and his overall shot selection has been questionable to say the least. But even with all of that being said, there should never be any conversation about whether or not he's better than players like Tyrese Maxey, Tyler Herro, or even at this point Evan Mobley, who is still a rookie, all of which were ranked higher than him. He's helped lead the Celtics to the conference finals twice already in his career, and you can't just completely ignore the past and overreact to a handful of games from one season, especially with so much time left in the season as a whole this year. And finally, the last player that got disrespected big time on this list is Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks, who came in one spot behind Tatum at number 9. In terms of who got ranked ahead of him and why it's disrespectful, everything that I just said about Tatum in that regard also applies to Trae Young. Young just led his Hawks team to the conference finals last season, in a run where he dominated at a level that should have left little doubt about whether or not he's a big-time player that performs when the lights are brightest. What's so frustrating about hot takes and overreactions like what this list is that people just seem so quick to forget what players have already accomplished. On top of that, he's not even struggling individually this year, averaging 26 points and 9 assists per game, while shooting a career-best 39% from 3 on the season as a whole. Trae should have been a lock for the top 5 of this list, yet for some reason, he's only a fringe top 10 guy according to the author of this list. And now, with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank the players under 24 years old in the NBA right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.